Cammack, representative from Florida, is a real fighter for liberty and our principles. How are you, ma'am?
Hey, Mark. It's good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Good to be with you as well. So I understand some Republicans are getting pressure, among others, to back off their demand that TikTok, or whatever they want to call themselves, TikTok, no, I'm kidding you, that they want to be, that they should be divested, bought by an American company sometime in the next 6 months or dissolved. What the hell's going on?
I tell you, Mark, I have not seen anything like this in a long time. And to be honest, it's pretty disgusting. You have seen in the last 48 hours an army of lobbyists descend on Capitol Hill, putting the pressure campaign on members of Congress. You have seen historic levels of lobbying dollars going to preventing the
We just lost you, Congresswoman. We're going to. Can we try and get her back, or is she going to call us, or what? We'll call her back. Tick-tack, tick-tock. The clock has stopped. Hey, I'm Robert Frost. I've heard this, too. You've got this billionaire. You've got the communist Chinese operations as well. You've got all the bottom feeders. They're fighting like hell to make sure that they can save TikTok. TikTok is owned by a communist front group, corporation, an umbrella corporation. They spread propaganda in this country. They're poisoning the minds of our children. What's that? Are you there?
Hear me, Mark? Yeah, can you hear me?
I guess TikTok cut us off. Just kidding. Anyway, let's start over. What's going on up there?
No, it's just been this absolutely disgusting lobbying push, pressure campaign on members of Congress. And, of course, we've seen what TikTok did with putting out not just a push notification to its 170 million users to call their member of Congress, but it actually tapped into the geolocation data of each user. And if you were in the Energy and Commerce Committee's district, one of those members on the committee, you couldn't access the app until you called that member of Congress through the app, which actually backfired because people were saying, I don't need to be doing the work of the Chinese Communist Party. So we had people actually deleting the app off their phones. But the lobbying effort has been truly, truly astounding. They are breaking records as we speak for the number of lobbyists and the dollars spent in trying to keep this in place in the United States.
They've bought a lot of influence in and around Washington, D.C. as well, so-called conservative organizations and think tanks, so-called conservative operatives. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. I mean, the FEC reports are going to blow people's minds when they track the dollars down and they find out where all this is leading into. And, of course, there's folks that have a vested interest, a financial interest in making sure that this stays going. But the thing that I question is the CCP's own foreign minister has come out and said that they will not allow for TikTok to be divested from ByteDance, which is curious to me because as a shareholder, if you were in the position to have shares and a financial interest in the company, it should be about making money, right? So you would stand to make a windfall from a divestiture, but instead, it seems like their motives are actually coming clear. They see this as a weapon of war. They see this as a tool in asymmetric warfare. It's not about the dollars because people would stand to make billions of dollars through divestiture. But that doesn't seem to be the end goal here, which is really interesting. And, of course, the data tells a very scary story itself about how this app is being utilized right now with the Gaza war.
How is it being utilized right now?
Well, most people would be shocked to know that over 50% of the free Palestine content, the pro-Hamas content on the platform, it actually originates in Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. Over 50% of that kind of content is created and pushed into the U.S. TikTok streams from those countries. So people who think this is some organic push happening in the United States, they don't realize that this is coming from overseas.
I don't understand the complete lack of patriotism of some of our friends. It doesn't take too much money to buy them off. It really does drive me nuts, and some of them are my friends. And I understand it in the Democrats. They're easy pickings, but not this. And I see it also, Congresswoman, with Qatar. Qatar has its hands in everything, including the education of the American people. They buy lobbyist groups. They buy athletic events. You see with the Hamas Front Group and their networks, groups like CARE and Students for Justice in Palestine, all this foreign money flowing into the United States by our enemies, by people who want to undermine us. And you and some other patriots are taking a stand and saying, no, we're going to do something about this. Let's draw the line. Everybody says we got to draw the line with China. And here you're trying to do something that isn't about a shooting war. It's about putting an end to this. Now, isn't it true that, and I think the New York Post did a good expose on this, isn't it true that one of the big American billionaires is also a financial investor in the mother company that owns TikTok?
Yes, absolutely. That would be ByteDance, and I think he owns 21%.
I forget his name.
I think it's Jeff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
And,
is he involved in this lobbying effort? I have no doubt.
Stake. I'm sorry.
Is he involved in the lobbying effort? It's got to be.
I haven't talked to Jeff Yass myself personally. But I do know that he's actively involved with different organizations, and all the organizations that he has ties to, they all are coming out adamantly against this bill.
Like Club for Growth.
So, exactly. And that's really disappointing to me. That is truly disappointing because they are misrepresenting what this bill is. And I've heard some things from friends of mine on the Hill who are saying, I'm not going to support this because of this organization. And I said, listen, I'm standing on principle, and this is a national security risk. This is a principled vote, and I cannot be bought or bullied. So I feel very strongly about this, and I'm very concerned that people are misrepresenting what this bill actually does.
They're also misrepresenting your philosophy and your position, and not just you, but they claim that that this is a unconstitutional move. Of course it's not. That this violates free speech. No, the enemy doesn't have a right to spread lies in our country. That's not part of the First Amendment. It's not even close. And then they claim that this is really a libertarian view, that we shouldn't be messing around with our companies. I'd like you to address these preposterous claims where they're trying to camouflage their real efforts here into some kind of an American form of patriotism. Kat Cammack, Congresswoman, do members of our party, your party up there, understand that this vote, in many respects, will be sort of a vote determining who stands for good and who does not?
I'm not sure that a lot of members are seeing it that way. I feel so many of my colleagues are trying to pretzel twist themselves into justifications to vote against it. And I'll say, quite honestly, I feel like this is a populism versus conservatism moment where people are leaning into what they're seeing online and saying, there's all this information out there. Doesn't matter that it's not true, but there just is this perception of what the bill actually is, and so they're falling for it. And to me, that's exceptionally dangerous because populism without principles is dangerous. And so from my standpoint, I have made it very clear that I am, as an original co-sponsor of this legislation, obviously in favor. And I see folks who are waffling and saying, you know what, if you want to go and be a foot soldier for the Chinese Communist Party, that's your prerogative. But it is a danger to the United States. This is the canary in the coal mine. And don't believe for one second that the CCP is going to not use this in the future for, say, when they invade Taiwan or something else happens in a major world event and they need to sway public policy. This is a moment. It's a defining moment, as you said, Mark. And I know I'm going to be on the right side of history.
Yes, you are. And these others are not, because we're already in a Cold War with Communist China. It's just that psychologically too many people in this country, starting with the meathead at the top, if you don't mind, don't understand that or don't want to recognize it. China has its tentacles in this country, It has its tentacles in our defense industry. It has its tentacles in our colleges and universities. It is pushing people over the open border. And we're going to actually have so-called conservatives and Republicans say this is a libertarian issue or this is a freedom of speech issue. I mean, can you imagine Republicans saying that in the face of the Third Reich? Can you imagine Republicans saying that when we're facing down an enemy that is building a military, they hope, second to none, aimed at us? What? And because some billionaire and others are spreading their money around and threatening people, and there's lobbyists in Washington, D.C., I'll tell you what that is, Kat. That is a society that is utterly unraveling, starting with the ruling class, no?
Absolutely. No, you're 100% right. And I am so sick and tired of hearing about the argument that somehow this is about constitutional rights. I will not be lectured to about constitutional rights and protection by a nation that is actively engaged in a genocide, China, who has no regard for human rights, and they want to start saying that all of a sudden they care about Americans' First Amendment rights. Let me be clear. There is nothing in this bill of content moderation, not a single thing. All it says is that you cannot be owned by a foreign adversary, and that adversary term is defined in U.S. code. It has nothing to do with the First Amendment, and the last time I checked, espionage was not one of the 5 tenets of the First Amendment. Mm-hmm. But I dare some of my colleagues on both sides, Republican and Democrat, to stand there and name the 5 tenets of the First Amendment. And I bet you $100, no, I'll up it, $1,000, Mark. I bet you $1,000 that more than 50% cannot name the 5 tenets of the First Amendment. I guarantee you that, and that's
now.
One of the problems.
They'll I think that's one of the problems. Try and take your $1,000. But all that said, there are issues and there are issues. This isn't something about a bike path or something. This is a big deal. This is the enemy of the United States. I mean, people make excuses for Putin. They make excuses. How do you make an excuse for this when they're literally brainwashing our children and they have a foothold in the propaganda of the United States? And you claim it's a First Amendment issue? Look, I'm a constitutionalist. I can't even figure out how it's a First Amendment issue. You're talking about another company owning them. So how's that a First Amendment issue? And you're talking about, if not, we're going to divest them. Gee, we've never taken out other companies in this country. We put them out of business for 1,000 different reasons. I'm not in favor of it. But this is the communist Chinese. This is what they're doing. There is no excuse that works. None, as far as I'm concerned. Any final words?
No, I mean, it's basically the equivalent of, would we have allowed Germany to control our radio stations and our newspapers during World War II? No. Mm-hmm. Would the Russians have ever had controlling shares of ABC or NBC? No. This is absurd. And when you look around the country, 98% of the U.S. views on TikTok with all the content related to the Israel-Hamas war, it's all pro-Palestinian. 98% of the content dealing with the war is pro-Palestinian. That tells you everything you need to know. That's why we have people protesting offices, shutting down airports. This is a direct relation to what is going on TikTok, and we can prove it. The data shows it. It's not a constitutional issue. It's a national security issue. We need to take a stand now. Otherwise, I fear for what comes around the corner.
Did Tokyo Rose have a First Amendment right? I mean, how stupid is all of this, to be perfectly honest with you? Yeah, we'll be watching. We're going to see. When is the vote on this?
The vote is at 10 o'clock tomorrow.
All right, Mr. Producer, I want us to keep track of the roll call on this and then report it to the American people, okay? The American people are not stupid. They know an enemy, and they're not going to be bamboozled with phrases like, oh, this is First Amendment free speech. They're not going to be bamboozled. Oh, this is libertarian. Oh, they're not. There's nothing American about this. All of it's un-American. There's nothing constitutional about it. There's nothing free market about it. This is a communist, diabolical, genocidal regime trying to destroy America that has an enormous foothold in our country and is brainwashing our children. That's it. Case closed.
Absolutely.
Congresswoman, thank you, and God bless you, my friend.
I appreciate it. Say a prayer for us.
Yeah, you got it. And ladies and gentlemen, you can say a prayer. I'm all for that. But if you want to call your members of the House of Representatives, I suggest you get on that phone. If you want to send them an email, I suggest you send that email. You either side with America and vote for this bill, or you side with communist China. It's that simple. I don't care about the grifters, the billionaires, the lobbyists, the think tanks, the organizations. I don't care what signs they put on their doors or what labels they give themselves. They're either with us or against us. And this is the vote that will determine that. And I just want these members of Congress to understand. We're going to get a list of who voted which way, and I will make it public. This I guarantee.